Hey guys, I just wanted to say I'm a little sorry for this video being a little late. The incident with Charlie Kirk really threw me for a loop, and I feel so terribly about everything that happened with that. And even in my own family, it's caused quite a bit of division. So that is a fun situation to deal with. Welcome to the Daily Problem Child, where we talk about the stuff they don't want you to talk about, and we do it because they don't want us to do it. France, often the beacon of envy across the world for its supposed cultural richness, has just removed its third prime minister in a little over a year. He's lost a vote of confidence by over 100 votes, and his total time in office was about 9 months, which is apparently better than the last two. Me, myself, I can only last about 5 minutes, but Macron's husband never complains. Apparently, he was drawing massive backlash trying to save about $40 billion on their budget by pausing welfare, cutting civil jobs, and getting rid of 2 public holidays. Quite frankly, I used to admire the French for their tendency to run through the streets and protest their government at any chance that they had. I would say, hell yeah, stick it to them. But it's becoming apparent that the French people simply are not willing to accept a single compromise in order to keep their country afloat. I often wonder why the wealthy class relies on importation of refugees for cheap labor, and it's becoming apparent that the French people being useless is more than just a meme. The average work week in France is about 37 hours, with overtime starting at 35. Even that was too much for them, as in 2024, they tried to start a nationwide 4-day work week with a 32-hour limit with no reduction in pay. I don't understand how anybody can think that that is a reasonable and feasible idea in today's world where you have to compete with Chinese labor. I get it. We're not going to ever be able to compete with the Chinese. That's why we have to tariff them, because they rely on literal slave labor to achieve these goals. A 4-day work week while also getting paid the exact same as everybody else, that's just not possible. It's literally impossible. Apparently, the French thinks money fall from the damn sky, and for all intents and purposes, Big Daddy USA protecting them from the consequences of their actions and weakness for so long may have had a massive impact on the French people, turning the entire nation into one big welfare state. Don't get me wrong, American workers are overexploited and underpaid, but there is an underlying duty to the nation and their community that drives Americans to brag about the hours that they work. The obvious happenings in the USA are that no matter how hard you work and no matter how much inflation destroys your dollar value, you will still be replaced by immigrants. And eventually, your entire factory job will just move to a third world nation to pinch pennies. However, the French haven't earned their egos. They failed to meet their NATO commitments since 2014. I covered this a little bit in my last video on a more broad stroke case about leftism as a whole, but the French exemplify arrogance and laziness, and it is no wonder that every single tourist area in France is overrun by pickpockets and violent scammers. And no surprise that their government is seeing the writing on the wall that the French people will tank the French nation rather than output in a way that makes them competitive in a world where the BRICS alliance is growing in power. I just have to do a little bit of an interjection here because look at that, the French are out there protesting and rioting and burning again. So I guess I really don't know what they have. I guess I really don't know what their plans are to, fix their country. They just complain about stuff but don't actually ever offer any solutions that are viable. I am staunchly pro-West, so do not misconstrue my analysis of the threat of BRICS as praise. However, the eventual reality is that the Europeans will drag the United States down like a drowning man taking down his rescuer. I mean, if you look at them nowadays, they're trying to start World War III again. It is always starting with the Europeans. It is time to cut them off. What I and the United States as a whole needs is to seek out new allies and clear up our own neighborhood. We have Mexico committing mass political assassinations for elections. We have Venezuela dumping their prison systems into the United States so that way they can save money and take us down from the inside. And our northern neighbor Canada is about to go through a whole secession process with Alberta and Saskatchewan that's picking up pace. I say it's time we leave the French and the rest of the EU to their own devices and see how long their free healthcare and education last while fielding their own defenses. A Polish presidential candidate about 4 years ago burned the EU flag. And with how Poland has been scolded for handling their refugee crisis and not submitting to France and Germany's circle jerk of narcissism, it's not a surprise that there's a growing sentiment across the world of being anti-European Union. Now Russia is testing this alliance by tossing drones, this is a little old, this happened a couple days ago, at Poland's border. I'm of the camp that Ukraine has more to gain by letting Poland be attacked than Russia has in attacking Poland. But we will see what happens as this house of cards begins to fall, one piece at a time. The United States is the only nation taking a different approach to civilization in the West. And it turns out that increasing your national identity and finding common sense stances on issues like border protection and enforcing laws in cities is extremely popular. We can let the Europeans experiment with having no jails. Well, New York is trying to do the same thing with their Muma Mama Amdami guy, whatever the fuck his fucking name is. They're trying to abolish prisons. As if crime wasn't already a problem in these left shitholes. We see what happens when you forgive somebody 14 different times. It ends with somebody getting stabbed in the neck. Upscale that to a nation or continent, and the suffering of these policies is caused is unimaginable. Almost like communism has never worked, and it always causes untold suffering and always will. And I'm very tired of these fucking Democrats coming out and celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, saying that the right has always been the violent ones, when the fact of the matter is the policies of the left directly contribute to basically all the crime in the country. Just like they say, most of the crime happens in the red states. It is happening in the blue states inside of those red states. Democrats are becoming an insurgent force inside of the United States, and it's about time we started treating them like that. The internet didn't change communism. It didn't make it a cool new trend with brand new ideas. It's the same thing. They just wrapped it in a different flag. It just tricked all the children of the world with no frame of reference for how the world is actually supposed to work to think that it's a way to solve the problems that their parents and grandparents caused by gobbling up all the resources before they were even really born. Stay tuned for more videos. We got a lot of things to cover today.